Have you ever had one of those days, a 12-hour workday where you look back at everything you did and you feel like you've actually gone backwards? Yeah, if you're nodding along right now, you are definitely not alone. Today we're jumping right into something called the productivity paradox, this totally counterintuitive idea that the secret to getting more done might actually be to do less.
Wow, this quote really hits hard, doesn't it? It just perfectly captures that feeling of being betrayed by this whole culture that promises success. It's constantly telling you, just grind a little harder, sleep a little less, but in the end, it just leaves you burnt out, staring at a blinking cursor at 2 in the morning.
So this is the big question, right? This is what we're going to unravel today. It's that feeling of just spinning your wheels. You're making a lot of noise, generating a ton of heat, but you're not actually moving forward. So why is it that putting in more and more effort so often leads to, well, less? Let's unpack the myth that got us all into this mess.
And yeah, that myth, it has a name: hustle culture. It's this idea that's everywhere, that your value as a person is directly tied to how many hours you clock in. We're going to treat this as the big lie that needs busting, because honestly, it's all built on some really bad math.
I mean, on the surface, this equation looks like it makes sense. It's what we're all taught, right? More time plus more effort equals more results. If 8 hours gets you X amount of work done, then surely 12 hours gets you 1.5x. But here's the thing. Our brains, our creativity, they just don't work like a simple calculator. This equation, it's a lie.
So where did we even get this broken idea from? Well, to figure that out, we got to turn back the clock. And I mean a really old, greasy factory clock from the Industrial Revolution. Our entire modern idea of work is basically being haunted by a ghost from the 1800s.
Okay, so this timeline tells a really cool story. Back in the 1820s, if you were a loom worker, yeah, productivity was pretty linear. A person was kind of like a part of the machine. But then, something happened in 1926 at the Ford factory that broke the whole model. And now, here we are as knowledge workers trying to run this incredibly complex creative software, our brains, on an operating system that was designed for repetitive factory work. It just doesn't compute.
And this is that breaking point I was talking about. You've got Henry Ford, the absolute king of industrial efficiency, who figured out that after a certain point, more hours actually meant less productivity. Why? Because tired, overworked people, they make expensive mistakes. Think about that. Even 100 years ago, they knew something that our modern hustle culture has somehow completely forgotten.
So this isn't just some historical lesson. It's literally wired into our biology. Let's take a look at what is physically happening inside your head when you push way past your limits. And this isn't about feelings or motivation. This is hard science.
So there's this psychological principle called the Yerkes-Dodson law, and it is the key to all of this. Just picture a bell curve, right? A little bit of pressure, a little bit of stress, it gets you focused, your performance goes up. That's the curve rising. But once you hit that peak and you keep pushing, your performance doesn't just plateau, it absolutely falls off a cliff.
And modern science totally backs this up. A really famous study from Stanford actually put a number on that tipping point. Researchers found that as soon as you cross the 50-hour mark in a work week, your output starts to just plummet. But wait, it gets even worse.
So get this. The study found that after 55 hours a week, the additional output you produce is 0. A big fat nothing. Zilch. All those extra 10, 15, 20 hours you're putting in, they're phantom hours. You are literally just pretending to be productive while achieving absolutely nothing of value. You're working for free. And to put it in a way you won't forget, think about your prefrontal cortex. That's the part of your brain that handles all the heavy lifting, complex problem solving, decision making. When you're constantly in overdrive, it basically gets cooked. It starts to look like a fried egg. And that metaphor, it's not just for shock value. It's a pretty powerful way to picture the real biological damage you're doing.
All right, so we've torn down that old, broken model. We know why it's failing us. Now it's time to build the new one. This part is all about shifting our mindset and actually embracing a smarter, healthier, and way more productive way of thinking about work. This is such a great way to reframe the whole thing. Most of us think of our energy like a gas tank, right? You just burn through the fuel until it's empty. But a much better way to think about it is like a mechanical bearing. It needs grease, and that grease is rest to run smoothly. When you overwork, you're not burning more fuel, you're just creating mental friction. All that grinding just generates a ton of heat and stress without actually moving you forward one bit. And you know what? This idea is ancient. The Taoist concept of wu-wei isn't about being lazy, it's about effortless action. It's the wisdom of knowing when to push and when to just step back and let things happen naturally. It totally reframes rest, not as some reward you get for working hard, but as a basic requirement for doing good work in the first place. It's the ultimate work smarter, not harder. Okay, so this brings us to the action plan. We've got the problem, we've got the history, we've got the science. Now, how do we actually escape this trap in our real lives? Here are the tools you need to do it.
Let's break this down. First thing, stop measuring your worth by the clock. Focus on what you actually get done, not how long you sat in a chair. Second, you need to practice what the source calls strategic laziness. That 20-minute walk or that short nap, that isn't slacking off. That is essential maintenance. It's you re-greasing that mental bearing. And third, set a hard cutoff time for your workday and stick to it. That deadline creates a good kind of pressure that forces you to focus on what actually matters.
And that really brings us to the final thought here. This whole thing isn't just about avoiding burnout. It's about unlocking what you're actually capable of. We've been told our whole lives to just try harder. But maybe, just maybe, the real breakthrough comes when we finally give ourselves permission to stop. So I'll just leave you with that question to chew on.